Big Finish tends to have a lot of new releases that I really want to get my hands on, but I usually have to say no considering the high cost. But Out of Time was just too enticing of a story, and the opportunity to listen to David Tennant and Tom Baker acting alongside one another in a Doctor Who adventure was something I could not pass up the opportunity to experience. And having now finished this audio adventure, I have to say that it was genuinely delightful. I could not help but have a great time hearing two of my favorite incarnations of the Doctor together, and I think they are both wonderful here. David Tennant, to me, feels exactly like the character he was in the show, and it does not feel like he left the part at all. He's got such a great balance between this lightheartedness and seriousness, and that just blends together so perfectly. Tom Baker is also great in this one. I haven't seen quite all of his TV appearances, which I am working on, but from what I have seen, the man is definitely a bit more mellow in his performance of the character than he was in the 70s. And this is my first Big Finish with Tom Baker, so he might just tackle the character in a slightly different way at this point in his life. But from Out of Time, I found him to be a bit more of a friendly Doctor. He doesn't have quite as much of an edge to him, not that he had too much of one when he was on TV, but here it is almost entirely gone, and he's just incredibly warm and kind. It's one of the just nicest portrayals of a Doctor I've really ever seen. It's not that Tom Baker isn't trying or anything like that, he's just giving, I feel, a slightly different take on the character, which I enjoyed. This might be slightly contributed to by his age, I don't know. You can tell his voice is notably older than it was some 45 years ago, unsurprisingly, but I got used to that pretty quickly and just thoroughly enjoyed him in this part. Though both Doctors get their fair share of the screen time, although there is no screen, of course, because you're listening to it, I definitely consider this one to be a 10th Doctor adventure, because it does use the music from Series 4 as the intro, and we start off with David Tennant as the primary Doctor that we are introduced to this story through. So the structure of this one definitely feels like another episode from his era, even down to the format, this being about 50 minutes in total. So it was just nice to have another adventure from that era, but unlike the previous 10th Doctor audios, naturally this one feels quite unique and significant. Throughout the first 3 volumes of the 10th Doctor adventures, there were some good stories, but on the whole, there weren't many that I found would be particularly memorable had they aired in their given seasons when the show was broadcasting. But this one is absolutely one that you would remember, and genuinely, it's a really good time. These two Doctors absolutely have great chemistry with one another, and their dynamic feels different to any of the other multi-Doctor stories that have come before. And because this is probably the aspect of the story people are most interested in, I'm not going to give away how they interact or what comes of it, or even talk much about it at all, but I have to say that I really enjoyed listening to these two conversing and having to take care of the Daleks and the problem of this story. It was just a lot of fun and genuinely made this one worth purchasing. The actual story is enjoyable as well. It's relatively simple and not too overly complicated. I think they had just the right amount of stuff going on for this adventure because you don't want it to distract too much from the team up of these Doctors, especially since you only have 50 minutes in this one, but you also want it to be investing and to be a quality and entertaining story, and I feel that they balance those things really well. There's a very neat setting in this actual thing, and there are some cool ways in which that plays into the story, which I'm sure you'll understand if you've actually listened to this one, but I won't give it away if you haven't, and they definitely succeeded in keeping the actual story engaging and investing, while still allowing us to have some quality time with our Doctors. The supporting characters are reasonably good as well. None are particularly stand out, but they were mostly serviceable, though I found the character of Jorah to be pretty good and I liked what she had to do within the story. As you probably know, the Daleks are the main villain in this one. Now, this is something that I was a little bit concerned about going in because I do feel that there's just been a huge oversaturation of Dalek stories in Doctor Who, and that's just from the TV show. I haven't even listened to any of the Big Finish ones outside of this, and I just don't find myself that interested in experiencing another Dalek story, you know? But fortunately, they are actually quite well portrayed in here, and they do feel like a legitimate threat. Their presence is felt throughout, and while they don't really do much that you haven't seen before, they work rather well and basically do what they need to for this one. I still kind of wish it was a different villain, but it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. I think the main thing to take away from this one is just how much fun it is to have these two brilliant actors performing their wonderful incarnations of the Doctor opposite one another. That aspect of the story is the reason I came, and also the reason I found myself so delighted by this adventure. I think I still would have enjoyed this if it were just a story with a 10th Doctor or the 4th Doctor and not both, but having them together definitely makes this something wholly unique. Overall, I had a blast with Out of Time, and I found myself thoroughly entertained by this adventure. The story, villains, setting, and supporting characters all work to varying degrees, and most importantly, Tom Baker and David Tennant fully deliver as the characters and make this an audio to remember. If you haven't listened to Big Finish before, this is honestly a pretty good jumping on point as far as I'm concerned, because it so successfully balances an interesting story with the main dynamic of our two leads. I had a wonderful time with this, and I'm going to give Out of Time a rating of 8.25 out of 10. And that does it for today, everybody. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on Out of Time down below, if you feel like doing so. No spoilers, though, for the folks that have not heard this one before, and I hope to see you around for more Doctor Who reviews and lots of things. I should have a number of videos coming out around this time, depending when this video goes live. I know the story actually came out in like August or something, and now it's December or January. I'm not sure exactly when I'm posting this one, but I've got a lot of new videos coming out in December and January, and I hope that you will try to check some of them out if you're interested in Doctor Who, and if not, that is absolutely fine, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.